Have you ever felt out of place in a crowd, as if you were seeing the world through a lens that no one else sees? It may seem strange, even scary, but the truth is that this feeling is the first step towards something much bigger. You are already in the fifth dimension. Forget what they say about spiritual ascension being something for the enlightened few or a trip of the head. In reality, this experience is more common than you might think, and, believe me, it is a gift of the planetary transition that many still ignore. Get ready to understand why this uncomfortable feeling is actually the greatest proof that your soul is awakening to a vibrational frequency far beyond matter and ego. And the best part? You'll discover how to navigate this new world with clarity and spiritual alignment, avoiding common pitfalls and connecting deeply with your essence. Imagine a place where time does not dictate the rules, where the ego loses strength and matter is no longer the protagonist. This place is not on another planet, nor does it require you to leave the physical body. We are speaking of the fifth dimension, a vibrational frequency where consciousness awakens beyond the illusions of third-dimensional reality. It's not about disappearing, it's about expanding. Those who access this dimension begin to realize that there is much more than what is seen. It is as if the curtain on the stage of life was slightly raised, revealing a new scenario. This new frequency is not a destiny, but a state of being. It is where spiritual feelings begin to dominate ordinary logic, and decisions are guided by the heart, not just the intellect. To live in the fifth dimension is to recognize the symptoms of ascension, a deep, silent, and powerful inner shift. Modern spirituality talks a lot about this, but many still confuse it with something too mystical. In fact, it's quite practical. It starts with a change in thinking, then comes the change in perception. And when you realize, there is no going back. The cosmic energy that surrounds the fifth dimension is always present, but few tune into it. Like a radio station, you have to adjust the dial, and that starts with the awakening of consciousness. This attunement allows you to feel spiritual signals that previously went unnoticed, presentiments, amplified emotions, even vivid dreams that seem like messages. It's no coincidence. It is the beginning of a planetary transition happening within each one, and reflected in the collective. The soul awakens when it understands that it is no longer possible to live on automatic. And then comes that moment when the person looks around and wonders, what am I doing here? It is not discouragement, it is the consciousness recognizing that something has changed. The world remains the same, but the look is no longer the same. This is the first portal of the dimension shift. Practical examples: daily meditation, fasting from negative information, immersion in nature, these are keys that help raise the vibrational frequency. Reading books like The Power of Now or The Celestine Prophecy can also be a good start. Whoever comes into contact with this new dimension feels an inner calling. It is not shouted, but it echoes strongly. The world seems noisier, distractions emptier, and silence begins to be more attractive. It is as if something inside said, there is more, it goes beyond. And that's when the feeling of not belonging starts to emerge. But about this, there is still much to be said. There is an instant when the soul awakens and begins to whisper, you no longer belong here as before. And it is not drama or alienation, but one of the most subtle and powerful symptoms of ascension. It's that weird feeling of being out of place, even in places that once felt comfortable. The vibrational frequency changes, and suddenly, the old world starts to feel old indeed. What once made sense, now sounds shallow. This feeling is not of this world, it comes from the fifth dimension. Many people think they are depressed or confused, but they are actually in dimensional transition. The planetary transition causes exactly this kind of existential discomfort. Do you know that emptiness that appears in the middle of a superficial conversation, or the desire to run out of a noisy environment? They are spiritual signs that indicate misalignment with the old vibrational pattern. When this happens, it is because spiritual alignment is asking for passage. It's like changing mental clothes and realizing that some clothes no longer fit. Interests change, moods adjust, and even food begins to change naturally. The person may begin to reject processed foods, be attracted to practices such as Reiki, yoga, or even readings such as Autobiography of a Yogi. This is not a spiritual fad, it is cosmic energy signaling that the body and spirit need to align with a new frequency. This feeling of non-belonging, if well understood, is a compass. It points to the new, even if the new seems invisible. It's not about escaping the world, but about finding your new place within it. An awakened soul is not satisfied with ready-made answers. She wants purpose, truth, depth. That's why so many begin to question everything: work, relationships, routine. And these questions are, in fact, symptoms of the awakening of consciousness. And when that feeling becomes routine, the next step usually appears without warning: a sudden intuition, a mild premonition, a certainty that springs out of nowhere. Curious how everything seems connected, isn't it? But this, my friend, this is just the beginning of what comes next. Have you ever felt like something was going to happen before it even happened? It wasn't paranoia, it wasn't coincidence, it was your intuition, that subtle antenna that picks up spiritual signals before the rational mind can process them. As consciousness aligns with the fifth dimension, these perceptions become clearer. It is as if the veil between the worlds began to thin. This is one of the symptoms of ascension that confuses the most in the beginning, because logic wants proof, but the spirit already knows. And the most interesting thing, the more you trust, the more it intensifies. Modern spirituality has called this phenomenon intuitive channeling. It's that moment when you think of someone and they call. Or when you feel a strange energy when you enter a place, and find out later that something bad has happened there. This high vibrational frequency transforms intuition into a reliable compass. Want to exercise this? Try writing down your hunches in a journal and see, over time, how many are confirmed. This is spiritual training, and it works better than a lot of course out there. These intuitions are more than vague sensations, they are downloads of cosmic energy in thought form. Those who are in dimensional transition usually report that they wake up with ready-made ideas, premonitory dreams, or even sensations of knowing someone they have just met. The awakened soul is always connected to higher dimensions, even if it does not realize it. Therefore, sometimes it is better to silence the external noise and listen to what comes from within. A good habit? Guided meditations focused on expanding perception. There are several on YouTube, and some are transformative. But beware, ignoring these spiritual signs can create an uncomfortable internal noise. That unexplained headache, anxiety for no reason, or even chronic insomnia, are often indications that something needs to be heard. The energy of the fifth dimension is subtle, but persistent. And the more one tries to stifle intuition, the more it screams. Listening to one's own silence becomes an essential skill in this journey. By the way, have you noticed how silence has gained a new meaning lately? Because when intuition increases, certain people start to move away. And maybe, just maybe, this is not a coincidence. It's not easy when someone who has always been around starts to move away. Sometimes there is no fight, there is no apparent reason, the connection simply dissolves. This is one of the least talked about, but extremely common symptoms of ascension. When the vibrational frequency rises, certain relationships cease to resonate. It's like trying to tune a radio station to a device that no longer picks up that frequency. The awakened soul understands this, but the human heart still feels the impact. The planetary transition does not separate by punishment, but by alignment. Many friendships, relationships, and even family ties go through a natural process of distancing. Not because someone made a mistake, but because one side started vibrating in the fifth dimension and the other is not there yet. And this has nothing to do with superiority, it's just energy trying to reorganize itself. Modern spirituality calls this vibrational disconnection. And as strange as it may seem, this estrangement is often divine protection. It is common for the person in the process of awakening consciousness to feel guilt or loneliness. But the truth is that the universe is making room for new connections, more compatible with this new phase. That group that was once fun now seems empty. Conversations that used to liven up are now tiring. An example. You start talking about cosmic energy or spiritual signs, and on the other side he only sees eyes turning. It's not spiritual arrogance, it's just the realization that the conversation has changed. At these times, it is worth looking for groups and communities with similar purposes. It can be a meditation circle, a spiritual study group, or even online spaces about modern spirituality. The important thing is to understand that you are not alone. This distancing is not a punishment, it is an invitation. An invitation to new connections, new soul encounters. And when these new people show up, it's like meeting someone you didn't even know you were looking for. And in this phase of internal reunion, a restlessness begins to be born. What is my true purpose? And that changes everything. There comes a time when simply living for the sake of living is no longer enough. The awakened soul begins to ask uncomfortable questions. Why am I here? What is my role in this world? And no superficial answer can satisfy. This discomfort is one of the most powerful spiritual signs of the fifth dimension. The person feels that he needs to contribute something bigger, something that transcends routine. It is as if an inner call began to beat harder and harder. Ignore it? No way. The discomfort does not allow it. This search for purpose is not about dropping everything and becoming a monk, although, for some, it even makes sense. It's about aligning life with something that makes the heart flutter. It could be turning your current work into a healing channel, or perhaps starting a side project focused on modern spirituality. The important thing is that there is intention. Examples. Create content about awakening consciousness, offer energy therapies, or even promote meetings to raise the vibrational frequency of groups. It's purpose with action. The curious thing is that, at this stage, money is no longer the main motivator. Of course, it is necessary, but it no longer dictates the rules. The person wants to wake up with excitement, not with heaviness. The cosmic energy of the fifth dimension drives this desire to live with meaning. And the good news, when you align with the purpose, synchronicities multiply. The right people appear, doors open, and even time seems to cooperate. It's as if the universe said, now yes, you're on the way. This deep search also reveals what no longer serves. Often, the change of dimension begins with a resignation, a crisis, or a breakup. It is not punishment, it is liberation. Modern spirituality teaches that when life dismantles, it is to be reborn more aligned. So instead of resisting, it's best to ask, what is this situation trying to show me? Books such as The Artist's Way and Purpose by Sri Prem Baba help a lot in this investigation. And as this search progresses, the sensitivity intensifies. Feeling too much is no longer weakness, and it becomes a new way of seeing the world. Suddenly, everything plays deeper, a song makes you cry, a strange look weighs you down, a closed place seems to tighten your chest. This is not drama, it is heightened energetic sensitivity, one of the clearest symptoms of the transition into the fifth dimension. The awakened soul begins to feel what is behind what is seen. It is as if the filter is removed and the real vibration of people and environments becomes visible. Modern spirituality calls this expanded perception. And, believe me, once this activates, there is no off button. This sensitivity can be tiring at first. Those who are in the process of spiritual alignment often feel drained after social gatherings, meetings, or even when going to the grocery store. That's because you don't just absorb what people say, you pick up on what they feel. And this requires care. Good practices include energy baths with coarse salt and rosemary, use of crystals such as black tourmaline, and energy protection meditations. It's not freshness, it's vibrational hygiene. Over time, this sensitivity ceases to be a burden and becomes a gift. You know when you feel that someone is sad even though they are smiling? Or do you realize that a place isn't cool before any warning? This is energetic sensitivity in action. And it's not to run away from it, it's to learn how to use it. Many therapists, artists, communicators, and spiritual leaders access this skill to guide their actions. The cosmic energy of the fifth dimension thins the antenna, and with that, the reading of the world changes. Of course, this also means that you will need more silence, more pauses, more nature. Because feeling too much wears you out. And when this rhythm is not respected, the body warns: chronic tiredness, insomnia, or that desire to disappear for a few days. Therefore, creating moments of healthy isolation is essential. It could be a walk without a cell phone, a weekend without social networks, or just listening to mantras like Deva Pramals to calm the vibe. This recharges the soul. And as this sensitivity grows, the universe begins to respond to you with signs. Small, repetitive, intriguing. But then, we enter another territory, that of synchronicities. You think of someone, and they send you a message. Look at the clock, and there are the same numbers: 11:11, 22:22, 12:34. Coincidence? Not exactly. These patterns are some of the most classic spiritual signs of the fifth dimension. The awakened soul begins to notice that the universe has a language of its own, and that it manifests itself in synchronicities. It is as if the unseen begins to beckon, saying, "You are on the way." And the more attention you give, the more they happen. These phenomena are how cosmic energy interacts with your personal journey. When the vibrational frequency rises, the external reality begins to align with the internal thoughts. Therefore, thinking of something and then seeing that theme repeated in videos, books, or conversations is more than normal. It is modern spirituality at work on a daily basis. A practical tip: have a synchronicity notebook. Write down the patterns and try to understand what message is behind each repetition. Seeing synchronicities is not magic, it is attunement. The planetary transition is adjusting the collective field, and those who are more connected perceive these codes more clearly. Sometimes, a number appears insistently because it carries a specific vibration, such as 444, a symbol of spiritual protection. Other times, synchronicity comes in the form of music, movies, or even conversations with strangers who tell you exactly what you need to hear. The awakened soul understands that nothing is by chance. But it is not enough to notice, it is necessary to act. Synchronicities are not predictions, they are pushes. If you see the same number every day, or come across the same subject for weeks, ask, "What is the universe trying to show me?" This is a form of dialogue with higher dimensions. And the more you honor these messages, the more the universe collaborates. Notice, everything starts to fall into place, even things that seemed messy. It's like putting together a puzzle with pieces that come from all sides. And when this game starts to make sense, something curious happens: the interest in appearance, status, and vanity decreases, and a new type of wealth emerges. One day you wake up, look at the full closet and think, "Why do I have so much stuff that I don't use?" This moment, apparently banal, marks the beginning of a profound change. When consciousness enters the frequency of the fifth dimension, materialism begins to lose its luster. Not because goods are bad, but because they no longer serve to fill the inner void. The awakened soul realizes that accumulating does not bring peace. The cosmic energy begins to pull the person in, not out. Modern spirituality does not condemn comfort, it questions attachment. And at this stage, a desire to simplify everything often arises: the house, the wardrobe, the agenda, the life. There are those who feel like donating clothes, changing their consumption style, even leaving social networks for a while. It is not an existential crisis, it is vibrational cleansing. The planetary transition calls for space. And to make room for the new, the old needs to leave. Including the old ego, which fed on appearance, approval, and status. Detachment is liberating, but it is also scary. After all, for a long time we were taught that success was synonymous with having. But the fifth dimension invites us to redefine this concept. Success is now being. Be consistent with the heart, be true to the soul, be light. Practical examples. Choose products from small producers instead of big brands, exchange gifts for meaningful experiences, and invest time in self-knowledge. This isn't fashionable minimalism, it's spiritual alignment. And the curious thing is that the more you let go, the more abundance arrives. Not the abundance of objects, but of meaning. The right opportunities appear, creativity flourishes, and the sense of contentment expands. The awakened soul understands that it was never the car, the outfit, or the title on the badge. It is expanding consciousness. And when this understanding is installed, a new feeling is born, that of deep connection with everything and everyone. And that's exactly where compassion comes in, not forced, not rehearsed, but natural as breathing. Something quietly changes when the soul awakens to the fifth dimension. You begin to feel for others as if you feel for yourself. It's not that you choose to empathize, it just happens. Even with strangers, even with those who hurt you. It is as if the heart gained a new layer of sensitivity, capable of capturing the pain of others clearly. This is one of the noblest spiritual signs of the planetary transition. Compassion becomes the primary language, not a moral endeavor. Many are startled when they realize that they are crying for a scene in a movie, or getting emotional with stories that would have previously gone unnoticed. This is the awakening of consciousness, translated into pure feeling. The cosmic energy of the fifth dimension dissolves the walls of the ego, making the we more important than the I. It's not weakness, it's refined strength. Modern spirituality teaches that by feeling deeply, one heals the world and oneself. A conscious hug can be worth 1,000 words. This empathy also changes the way you communicate. You start talking less and listening more, with real presence. Notice when the other needs silence, or a simple word. Practical examples. Give a sincere compliment in the middle of the day, listen without interrupting, or even send a message just to say, "I remembered you. Is everything okay there?" Small gestures that create big effects. The high vibrational frequency transforms everyday life into a healing field. Of course, this also makes you more vulnerable, in a good way. You feel the world stronger, and that can be tiring. But at the same time, this openness allows for real, deep connections that go beyond appearance and convenience. The awakened soul no longer wants relationships based on interest, but on presence. And this presence is born from the heart at peace, from the ego in silence. The kind of silence that welcomes, that listens, that transforms. And speaking in silence, perhaps it no longer means absence. Perhaps he is becoming a pure presence. There comes a time when the noise of the world is no longer attractive. What was once necessary to feel alive, parties, news, social networks, begins to lose strength. The awakened soul seeks silence, not as an escape, but as a re-encounter. And that is one of the subtlest spiritual signs of the transition into the fifth dimension. The vibrational frequency changes so much that the person begins to hear, which was never said. It is in silence that cosmic energy speaks loudest. Silence ceases to be a nuisance and becomes a sacred space. An invisible temple where spiritual alignment happens almost effortlessly. Modern spirituality teaches that emptiness is fertile. It is in this void that answers, insights, peace arise. Many report that by being silent for a few minutes a day, they feel as if they have taken a soul bath. It's simple, yet powerful. A practical practice. 5 minutes a day of mindfulness, anywhere, just breathing. And then, the pauses take on another meaning. A cup of tea becomes a ritual. A sunset becomes a silent conversation with the universe. The awakened soul begins to understand that it does not need to shout to be heard, it needs to be at peace to listen to itself. And this inner listening reveals truths that were hidden behind the haste, the anxiety, the need to prove oneself. Silence becomes a compass. It becomes a house. It becomes medicine. And it is not that silence solves everything, but it creates the necessary space for everything to begin to be resolved. The fifth dimension is less about talking beautiful and more about living authentically. The less you say, the more you feel. The less one seeks outside, the more one finds inside. And it's curious how, when you find that quiet peace, the world seems to talk to you all the time, in subtle but clear ways. Silence becomes a portal. And those who cross this portal begin to see the world with new eyes, as if he were, in fact, in another dimension. The time has come to put all this knowledge into practice. You have already perceived the signs, felt the call of the fifth dimension, and understood what this vibrational frequency shift means. But the question that remains is, what are you going to do with it? Will you continue on autopilot, or will you embrace the awakening of consciousness with courage? How is your spiritual alignment today? Is it time to let go of what no longer serves, make room for synchronicities and live with true purpose? And then, tell me, which of these signs have you noticed in yourself? How have you dealt with this feeling of not belonging to an old world anymore? Is your cosmic energy in harmony, or does it need an adjustment? These questions are not just for thinking, but for acting. After all, real change only happens when we decide to take the first step, and the universe is always ready to respond to those who dare. So, how about starting right now? Subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, and come with me on this journey of transformation and expansion. What are you waiting for to live a more aligned, light, and meaningful life?